Okay, so in the previous video we started building our application page, or the Scriver page here. So we created that nice hero banner with the icon, the text, a drop down button, and we added our slider gallery, our feature set, and the full width banner with a call to action button. In this video we're going to continue working on this page and start adding more of the content, such as this product listing, the user quotes, and the video at the bottom with the awards. Okay, so let's get going with that. So we'll go back to RapidWeaver. And once again, what I'm going to do is collapse this banner area, or this container, sorry, by clicking the hide button, just so we've got more space here whilst we're editing. And what I'm going to do is drag and drop in another container. So we'll drop that into the page. And then inside of here, what we want is a header. And then we want a paragraph. Okay, and what I'm going to say here is amazing new products, like so, and we're going to align that center, and then the paragraph will also be aligned centered, and again we're going to use a lead paragraph here, and I'm just going to shorten the text up slightly, something like this. Okay, so if we just go back to our live site here, the first thing we want to do, or actually if I just refresh the site and I scroll down, keep an eye on what happens here, you'll see that the content is animated in when we get to that section. So we will look at doing that in just a minute, but the first thing we want to do, or the first thing we need to do, is lay out these products in this fashion. So in Foundry, these items that we've created here are called cards. So you can have a card deck, and the benefits of using a card within inside of Foundry is because it will do the responsive layout of all of these cards for you. So once you get down to certain device sizes, these will automatically adjust and snap under each other in a similar way to the column layouts do. However, the card gives you a little bit more flexibility for adding things like header images like this, and buttons and text and so on. The card is a good tool to have. You'll more than likely find it handy. I've given you an example of laying out a product, but this could be a pricing table, or it could be a list of videos. Anything that is going to be laid out in a similar fashion here, it's handy to use the cards. And one thing that I have just remembered that it does very nicely is it will equalize the height of all of these cards automatically for you. So if this middle card had less text here, it would still get the same height as the other two cards, or as the longest card in this set. Okay, let's go to RapidWeaver and start building this, and you'll start getting an idea of how this works. So what we need to add first is a card deck. So if we go up here, you'll see the card stack and the card deck. So obviously the card deck is the parent item, and by default Foundry will give you 3 cards, and if we just go and preview that straight away inside of Safari, you'll see there that we have 3 cards laid out in a nice column layout there. So very similar to the 3-column layout that we've done before with the actual column stack. However, we're going to be using the cards. So let's have a look at doing that now. Okay, so the first thing we need to add is a card title, and we'll want that at the top there. So we drag that above the paragraph, and then below the paragraph we're going to have a card divider, and then below that we are just going to use a card slice. Now a card slice basically allows us to drag any other type of content into here, and what we want is a button, so we'll drag and drop that in there. And then on the card, if you remember, there is an image at the top of here. So you might think that you want to add a card image, however that's not how we're going to be using this. There's a feature inside of Foundry that will allow you to add a header card, or a top image, and we can check that here, and then we can just drop the image that we want to use at the top of the card into here, or we can just browse for it. And if we go to the assets, and then I think I've got it under cards here, yep, and we go product 1, and there you'll see that gets applied. So let's update some of the text here. We'll call this product 1, and we're going to set the tag as H3, but we are going to make this bold, and I'm going to customize the font sizes for this title. So we'll say 18 pixels on the iPhone, and then 22 on the iPad and desktop. Okay, then finally the button. What we want to use here is a custom button, and we're going to set the background color to be the same as this header, so this turquoisey color, and we'll leave the text as white. But what we want to do is have a block button, because we want the button to take up the full width of the card. So I've just noticed that text is actually not white, so I'm going to set that as a white color, so 100% opacity. Okay, so let's go to Safari and preview that card. And there you'll see we get that layout nicely done for us. So what we're going to do now is do the same for these remaining two cards very quickly. So again, on the second card, what we want is a top image. We'll browse for that image and we'll say product 2. And what I'm going to do is just copy this card title and paste it into here. Drag that to the top. And we're going to say product 2. We'll leave the paragraph as it is. We'll add a divider. And then we'll add a card slice. And I'm going to copy that button so that we've got the same settings. And drop that into there. Whoops, and just drop that into there, sorry. Okay, and I'm going to update the background color. So I'm going to pick the green color from the product header image there. And on this one I'm going to change the text straight away. We're going to say buy now. And again, you can set the link there to whatever you need it to be. Like so. Okay, that should do it for that one. And then finally on the third card, again, we'll set a top image. We'll browse for that image and we'll choose the product 3. And once again, I'm just going to copy this card title over like so. Paste, whoops, and just drop that above the paragraph. We'll add a divider. Then we can actually just copy this card slice in here and paste it in. And we will update the background color to be the same as the header again, like so. And update the title here, so product 3. Okay, let's go to Safari and preview how that works. So yeah, there you can see we've got our 3 products laid out nicely. So very similar to the live site here. I think all we need to do on the parent here, so on the container, is ensure that the fixed width is 960 pixels. And we'll just preview that, because as you can see here, the content here is 960, but the content here was 1140, so it's a little bit wider and it looks a little bit. And we need to make sure that we set the container width to 960 so it matches the rest of our site. Okay, the next thing we want to do is, once we've got these cards laid out nicely, is, if you remember, when we scrolled down to this section, the content faded in, or it zoomed in. So how do we do that? Well, with Foundry there is a stack called Reveal, and what this does is you just drag it into your page, and inside of here you add the content that you want to reveal when this section is seen in the browser. So just add the reveal stack in above the card deck and then drag and drop the card deck inside of the reveal stack. Then select the reveal stack, and what we can do here is set the animation type. So by default we'll just fade in. You can set the duration. So here, for example, we can set ½ a second. You can set a delay and an offset. We'll have a look at that in just a minute, but let's go back to Safari and preview how that works. So we scroll down our page, and there you see the content faded in. But what we want is probably a bit of a delay and maybe an offset. So let's go and actually increase that to 1 second for the duration, a delay of perhaps 200 milliseconds, and the offset of 100 pixels. So we go to Safari again and preview that. And I just scroll up and refresh the page again so we can see how that works as we scroll down. And there you see the content's faded in as we scrolled past it. Okay, so to change the animation type, all you need to do is select one of the animations that are given to you by default here. So let's try the bounce in, for example. We'll go back to Safari, wait for that to refresh, and there you'll see we get a different animation type. So it's as easy as that to do and reveal content as we scroll down the page with Foundry. I'll let you have a play around with the different animation types. The one that I was using on the live site was zoom in and up, I believe, so I'll select that. And when we scroll down again, there you'll see it zooms in and up. So you might want something a little bit more subtle, perhaps just a fade in and down, and we can update the duration to be 1.5 seconds, make it a little bit more subtle, and there you'll see it comes in like so. In fact, I think what I'll choose is just fade in. And that will do it for that piece of content. The next one we're going to build is the user testimonies. So let's go and hide this container. Then what we're going to use is the banner stack. So drag and drop that in below the container. And what we're going to use for this banner is a gradient. So here we can, instead of having a solid color, we can select a gradient. And you'll see you get this by default. What we had was the dark blue. I'll leave it as this pink and purple for now, just so that you can see the effect more clearly. And we'll add the content inside of that and then look at updating the color in just a minute. So inside of that banner, what we need is a container. So we'll drag and drop that in. And this container, we need to set the max width to 960 to match the rest of our site. Then inside of there, what we're going to add is a slider again. So if we scroll down and find the slider stack and drop that in. So by default, and how we used it earlier, was with some images. But what we can actually do is remove all those images. And what we're going to use is the slide content. And then inside of here, what we're going to do is add those quotes. However, we just need to adjust the slider settings. And what I'm going to say is I don't want any pagination, because I don't want this to be obvious that it is a slider. Well, I'll allow the arrow so that the user or the viewer could go left and right and view the next quote should they want to. And then the transition type, I want that to be fade, so that they fade in and out on top of each other. And what I'm going to choose is expand slides in edit mode. And what that essentially does is just set the slide content stack here to be full width. And that will make it a little bit easier for us to add the content into our stack here. So the next stack we're going to use is, if I just show you the live site, what we have is the user avatar on the left or the right, and then the quote on the opposite side. So here you can see we have the avatar on the left, the quote on the right, and then the next one we alternate that. So to create this layout, what we're going to use is the media group. So search for media group and drag and drop one of those inside of the slide content there. And you'll see you get the image on the left, and you can drop any type of stack content on the right hand side. So the handy thing with this stack is that you can automatically set the image to be aligned in the middle of the content, or at the top of the content, or at the bottom of the content. So the way this works is, if you have really long content and you want the image to be centered vertically within that, what you can do is set the vertical align to middle, and you'll see that the image there updated. If you wanted it at the bottom, you could have it like that too, but we're going to use the middle setting, and we want the alignment to be on the left hand side for the first one. Okay, so here you'll see that you need to set the image. So I'm going to browse to my avatars that I've got here, choose that one, and you'll see that gets set there. Then on the right hand side, what we need to do is drag and drop in the block quote. So here you'll see the block quote stack, drop that in on the right hand side there. And we're going to want to adjust the styling in just a minute, but what I need to do first is, you can see the content is getting cut out again. And that happened just a minute ago with the banner stack. So what we need to make sure we set here is a flexible banner height, like so. Okay, once you've done that, the first thing I want to do is remove this border on the left hand side. So I'm going to choose a custom style, and I'm just going to set the border opacity to be 0. And then I'm going to set the text color to be white, and the citations, they can be, let's say, a slightly, let's choose a white color here and make it a bit more, say 50% opacity, like so. Okay, then if I go to text edit, I've got some quotes here, so I'm just going to copy and paste these in quickly. And we can set the quoted person here. So this one, let's just copy that over as well. And if you want to, you can set the site source, but we will disable that and we'll just have the name like so. Okay, so let's go and add a new slide content. And then what I'm going to do is copy this media group over into that one. And then, as I mentioned previously, the handy thing is that we can just set the alignment to be right. And you'll see that we get the opposite effect here. All I need to do then is update these block quotes. So I'm going to copy in the second one. And update the quote person, or the quoted person, should I say, like so. And before we go any further, what I want to do is actually update the quote size. So I'm using 30 pixels here, and I'll update that here before we copy these over again. Okay, so we've got 2 quotes in there now. Let's go to Safari and preview how that looks. So we'll go to our local site here and scroll down. And you'll see that we have the arrows where we can navigate through our quotes. We've only got 2 obviously, so it just flips back and forth. But what we need to do is add some padding, a little bit of margin above, and add those remaining 2 quotes that we have on the live site. So let's go and set on this container here, let's set a margin of 40 pixels on the bottom. And then on this inner container, what I'm going to do is set some padding. So I'm going to say 40 and 40, like so. And then I'm going to update this image here with the second avatar. And then what I'm going to do is copy this content down again. And just copy it a third time as well, actually, just to make it easy for us. Okay, so the second one, this needs to be, the media group needs to have the right alignment. And then I need to go back to my example copy here and copy in another quote. So I'll paste that into here. And set the quoted person. And then finally we need to update this media group with the remaining avatar. And we need to, of course, update the quote as well. So let's go and copy that in. And of course, set the quoted person. Okay, so let's preview how that looks in Safari now. There we've got a little bit more space below, and we've got our quotes that go round like so. So I think we've got Dan in there twice. So let's go and set the avatar here to this one. So, okay, and then finally what we want to do is update the banner background images. So the gradient color 1 is going to be the blue color that we have used previously. And the color 2 is going to be slightly lighter. So I'm just copying these over from another example project or from the live site that I've used previously, like so. So there you can see you get a nice subtle gradient there from left to right. So let's go and preview that. And then we have our user testimonies, and you can see that they automatically fade in and out over the top of each other. And you have seen how you can use the slider stack in 2 completely different ways. So the slider stack is used here for the image gallery, and we have our navigation dots and a big image there. And here we have our user quotes, and we have them just sliding through each other or fading in and out on top of each other, like so. So 2 great uses for the slider stack there. Okay, next up, if we have a look at the live site again, what do we need to create? We've got a video here, and we've got 2 user awards, or 2 awards for our apps here with a little bit of text. So let's have a look at creating that. Once again, I'm going to select the banner and hide that. Now I often work this way. What I'll do once I finish working on one section of the site, I will hide that within stacks to give myself more area to work with when I'm editing the site. Okay, so let's create this section quickly. We need a container. Then inside of that I need some columns. And for this column I only need 1, so we'll drag that down to 1 there. And what I want to do is add some padding, so we are just going to add 40 pixels on the top and bottom, And then we needed a header. So let's just search for these again quickly. Header, drop that in, then a paragraph, drop that in below. Then we had a video. So I'm going to search for the video stack that comes with Foundry. And here you'll see the video embed. We'll drop that in. Then below that we had those two awards that we've received from some magazines. So what we really want is a 2-column layout. So to do that, what we can do is drag and drop in the columns here. And by default we get those 2-column layouts. And then inside of there what we need is an image in each column. So we'll drag in the Foundry image into both sides. So that's our layout. What we want is the header text to be centered, as well as the paragraph, and we'll make that a lead. And I'll just reduce the size of that again, something like that. And the header text here is going to say create amazing artwork, like so. Then I'm going to set the video embed ID. I've got one here. So copy that over, paste that into here. So the source can be Vimeo, YouTube or Wistia. You just need to paste in the ID for each service. You can set the aspect ratio. We'll leave it as 16:9. And then in the bottom here we just need to set the images for this. So we'll browse for these, and I've got the awards image here. And the same for the right hand side. Open those up. And what I want to do is align the right hand column to the left and the left hand column to the right. Okay, and what I need to do with those images is just set the max width. So I'm going to set the image sizing max width to 284. And the same for the right hand column there as well. Like so. And I think that'll just about do it for the next content section. So let's go back to Safari and preview that. We'll go to our local machine. We'll go to our local site again. We'll scroll down. And there we can see we have our video loading here. We've also got the 2 icons. But as you can see, again, we've forgotten to set the max width for the container there. So we need to go back to our columns, to the container. And we need to set the max width to 960 again to ensure that it matches the rest of our site. So we go back and refresh that in Safari, scroll down to the bottom there, and yeah, now you can see we get that nice big video. We might want to make that a little bit smaller, and one way of doing that is by customizing the columns stack here. So what we could do, we might not need a full width, or we might not want it to be 960 pixels. So alternatively, you could set the max width here to be 700, depends on how your content is laid out, or you could customize the columns. And what we could do is on anything from the tablet up, we could set the first column width to be 8. And because we've only got one column here, what we need to do is set the alignment offset. What we can do is set the alignment offset. And what this does is basically shift over the first column. So the width of this column is going to be 8 out of 12. And then what we need to do is shift that over by 2 columns. Because what that will do is say there's 2 columns on the left. Then we have 8 columns in the middle. So that's 10. And then we have 2 columns remaining on the right hand side. And that will essentially center the content inside of this column stack. So let's go to Safari and preview that, and you'll get an idea of how that works. So we scroll down to the bottom here, and you'll see that the content has got a lot smaller there. So what I've forgotten to do is uncheck the use desktop breakpoint. So let's go back to Safari again and refresh that. So now you can see that the content inside of this section isn't 960. What it is 8 columns worth of 960 centered in the middle of the page. So it depends how you want to lay out your content there. That's just another handy little tip if you want to perhaps reduce the size of one certain area of your site. A nice way to do it is to ensure that the container is set to 960, so you have a consistent width throughout your site. And then the column stack inside of there, you can customize the column widths. And when I dechecked this use desktop breakpoint setting here, what I'm essentially doing is saying anything from the tablet and above need to use these settings. When you get down to a mobile width, you will have all of the columns will be 12 wide. So I can show you that if I enter the responsive design mode again, and we go down to an iPhone, for example, scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see that that now takes up the full width. And we might want to adjust how these are laid out on the iPhone as well in just a minute. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do is leave that as we have adjusted it, so 8 wide, but what we need to do is add a little bit of margin to the bottom of the video. Let's say 20 pixels there. And I think that will do it for this section as well. Let's exit the responsive design mode, scroll down, and if you notice the preloading arrow there that's going around, that's basically preloading the images or the content within the slider. So there's nothing weird going on there, it's just trying to preload the content for us without blocking the page from loading. Okay, anyway, we're focusing on this area, so we have a nice header, our text, a promo video, and 2 award icons or 2 awards that we've won for our app. And obviously they would link off to perhaps the review article. Okay, so finally I think let's go over to the live site, and what we need to create is this footer area for the app. So an easy way to buy that. If the user scrolled all the way down to the bottom of the page, they're probably interested in buying it, so let's give them an opportunity to easily do that. Okay, so we'll go back to RapidWeaver. Once again, we'll select the outer container and hide that. And then what we need to do is add a container below that one. And then inside of there, I'm going to add a banner. And we're going to set the container to be fluid. And remove the left and right padding. And then on the banner, we're going to be using an image. I'm going to browse for that image and choose the footer one here. And we will set the overlay, perhaps 50% black, or a little bit darker, we'll go 65 for this as well. Okay, and then what we want is a flexible height banner, and then inside of there we're going to add an image first, or sorry, a columns stack first. Drop that in there. Now again, we only want one column in here. And then inside of there, what we want is an image. That's our icon. Then we want the header. And a paragraph. And finally, a buy now button. So we'll just drop the button into there. So let's go and set these up now. So the image is going to be our icon. And we're going to set the image sizing to be max width of 256. Then our header is going to say Scriver for iPad Pro. And the paragraph text, what I'm going to do is copy over the text that we have in the banner area here. So let's just actually copy that paragraph and we will paste that in there. And I'm going to delete that one. And then the button, we want that to be center aligned, and the style we want is a primary, and we'll set the text to be buy now. Okay, and then the header, we want that to be center aligned, we'll leave that as an H2. We'll set the header style to be color picker, and we'll set the text to be white. And before we preview that, we just need to add a little bit of padding to the inner columns area here. And what I'm going to use for this one is double the padding. So we're going to say 80 and 80 on the bottom there. Okay, let's go to Safari and preview that. Go back to our local site. And we'll scroll down to the bottom of the page. And there we have our nice footer area. So the image is bigger than the live site. On the live one I've made that smaller, so we could do that here as well. Let's go back to RapidWeaver and we can set that actually to half size, so 128 for example. And we'll go back and refresh the preview. Scroll down to the bottom, and there we have a nice footer area where the user could easily buy our product. Okay, finally what we need to add is that global footer. So let's close up the banner area here, go to our stacked partial, scroll down below the banner area, and we haven't actually created the partial for the footer yet. I thought we had, so what we need to do is go to the home page. Then what we can do is select this footer container and simply click on the partials button. What I'm going to call this is global footer, like so. That will be added to our partials area here. Then we can go back to our app page and we can just drag and drop in our footer at the bottom of the page. All we need to do then is select our container here, or sorry, the banner here, and remove the base margin. Go back to the preview and scroll down to the bottom, and there you'll see that we have our global footer that is also on the home page. So I think that will just about do it for this lesson. We will continue in the next lesson improving this page and adding the final page of our site, which will be the company about page. So as always, once you're ready, I'll see you in the next video.